Hi, I'm Gary White for Channel 6 Central Kentucky Television. I'm here with Dr. Johnny Isaacs with Isaacs & Isaacs General Dentistry in Springfield on Bobolink Drive in Springfield. And today we're going to educate on some different things that people get confused about when it comes to dentistry, right?
Exactly. I was telling Gary right before the air, there are certain things that we use in dentistry. One of them is called a crown, and a lot of people will use that. A crown is synonymous with a cap. A lot of lay people will call them caps. And we'll have some people that come in and they'll say, my cap fell off, when really it was just a filling. I was telling Gary that about half the time that people think they have a problem, when I look inside there, it's actually different than what they thought. Sometimes people come and say, man, I've got this tooth that needs to come out, and I look at it and it's not as bad. So, and then probably more often than not, people say that it's not that bad, and it is, and it does have to come out. So I'd say roughly half the time they miss it. So I'd kind of like to go over a little bit of terminology. I know we've done some in the past, some nomenclature, but I'd like to kind of go over what a crown is, or a cap, what a bridge is, and then what implants are, and how and why we use all three of those and when we do it.
Okay.
So the simplest thing would be to start with a crown. A crown it's not a very good term either, but because we use crown to anatomically when we talk about a tooth. The tooth has a crown and it also has a root, but for some reason we call this artificial piece that goes over top of the tooth, we call that a crown too. So it's a little confusing.
Okay.
But this is made. This particular one is a ceramic crown. It's made out of a little bit of glass ionomer, and it's fused together with other materials. Very hard, very dense. But it happens to be lightweight too. So there's it's a very good material. A lot of times I won't use these on molars just because I want the strength of a metal and the beauty of porcelain, so I'll go with a PFM a lot of times. But these are getting to be better over time. This one happens to be, well, if you look at it, I thought it was ceramic, but it's not. It is porcelain. So that's how you can see the metal part inside there. When I first picked it up, I thought it was ceramic because it's hard to tell. I have, and I tell people I have a bunch of crowns in my mouth. I have 8 of them across the front. And I don't have the ceramic. I have the porcelain crowns with metal just for strength because I'm a guy. Guys tend to tear stuff up, so I opted for that. So and we use gold. We use an 18-karat gold some, and a lot of people are getting away from gold. In years past, we used to use tons of gold, but a lot of gold. And the reason is gold was a lot cheaper. If you remember back in the late 70s when gold really went up, that's when dentists quit using it, because we used to even we would use plastic. We would fuse gold on the plastic because gold was so cheap at some point, but then it went up, so we don't even do that anymore. So that's a crown.
So what's the difference between a crown and a filling?
Okay, well, a filling would be a small cavity that you have. So if it's very small, then you can numb it up, drill that out, and put a filling in it, and you can put ceramic fillings in there. A lot of dentists are using those. I use those, but I tend to use a lot of amalgam too, which are the metal ones. Why do I do that? They last longer. They last about 5 times longer. They don't leak, and if they do leak, the corrode around them will stop the leak. So if it's not going to show, a lot of times we still use the amalgam. But a lot of patients they do want to have the porcelain. They want the ceramic fillings too. And I've got one of those in my mouth, so I've had it. I've had all of that too. And I've got gold in my mouth, so I got a little bit of everything. But once a tooth is beyond filling, once a filling won't work anymore, that's when you have to go to a crown.
Okay.
And we do, because crowns are more expensive. They're expensive, but once we have to go to a crown, I mean, you can bet that thing's broken down. We patched it several times usually, just because I understand people don't have a lot of money they can shell out. Some do, but most people don't. And a lot of people that do have it, they still want to keep all they can. So we're gentle on their pocketbook too. Now, which leads us to what's the difference between a crown and a bridge? Well, a bridge replaces a tooth that's been extracted. Usually And I've got one of those too. I had a tooth extracted, front tooth. So whenever a tooth is extracted, you could go to the tooth on either side of it, and that's how it gets its name, like a bridge. You got an abutment on either side. You take an impression, send it to a lab, and then the lab makes the pretty bridge that goes in there. And there are some dentists can do that in their office, and that technology is coming too. And I've looked into buying one of those machines too, a Cerac machine, or there's a 3M machine too, and it's sort of like the imaging, that you can actually mill a tooth. There, I'm losing the term there that we're using, a 3M copy of it. So you can do that. What's the term?
3D image. Yeah,
exactly. And they're doing that in dental offices too. So they're making a crown right there as you wait. It takes a few hours, but they're doing it. So pretty amazing stuff. So they're doing. Okay. I don't have one of those, but I'm certainly looking at
like with a 3D printer.
Exactly.
When they print them out.
Exactly. Same kind of thing. So it's coming to dentistry too. It's actually been with dentistry for a long time. They've been using it for a while, but the machines were so expensive that prohibited you from using them.
Okay.
Precluded you from using it. So what I'm going to show you now is a 3-unit bridge, which if this person had a tooth missing, so you go to the tooth in front of it, the tooth behind it, take an impression, and then the lab makes the pretty bridge. And of course, a bridge, if you think about it, you've got an abutment on either side, and you've got traversing, some type of, let's just call it a river, and that's kind of what it is. We're making a bridge over top of it, and that seats in there. We call these FPDs, fixed partial dentures. We tend not to say bridge, but I say it every time because people would never know what I'm talking about if I said an FPD. But in the dental jargon, we call it a fixed partial denture, FPD.
Okay.
So we do a lot of those. I've got one, and do about, probably at least one or two a week. Crowns, we do several crowns a day, probably 1 or 2, 3 crowns a day, done probably 3 today. So that's how common they are.
Yeah.
Very common to have this done.
So this can be for more than just one?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yep.
You could do it for several?
Good question, Gary. You've been doing your homework. So that's called a 3-unit bridge because you've got the 2 abutments and the 1 in the center. That'd be 3. Now this one, this is a 6-unit bridge. Why do we call it 6-unit? Well, it's replacing 6 teeth. This particular person had his 2 front teeth taken out, and since the laterals are not very strong, lateral incisors are weak, you have to put a little bit more force, especially on a male. You'd have to have it more. So then you make a 3-unit bridge. I'm sorry, a 6-unit bridge to replace the 2, and this would be a 6-unit bridge. As you probably guessed, a 3-unit bridge or a 6-unit bridge is about twice as expensive as a 3-unit. Pretty expensive stuff. So it's really a piece of artwork and jewelry at the same time. So
yeah.
So we do quite a bit of those things. A bridge. Like I said, I've got one in my mouth. So and that's what that is. Now this happens to be one of the ceramic prosthetics. This has no metal in it. Aesthetically, it looks good, but most of them do. Depends on where the lip line is, or where you have to hide the margin in the metal. There's all kinds of little things that go into it. That's why we're always taking measurements and looking inside there. We get people to speak, and we're kind of seeing where their lip line is. I call it. Sometimes you tell people to smile, and if they're in a dentist, they won't smile. But I want to see what they really look like, so I'll kind of tickle them a little bit or tell them something and see where their lip line really is. And that's what we're doing. We don't want you to walk out here with a different smile than what you really have.
Absolutely.
So.
And for maintenance and routine cleaning, do you just do it the same way?
Yeah, very, very important. If you have the more dental work you have, you certainly ought to come every 2 years or so. Twice a year to get it cleaned out. Every 6 months, we recommend that. But it is a bridge, as you expect. It's kind of tough to clean around. You've got a space underneath there that you have to get floss through it, and there's little techniques that you can do. There's something called a bridge cleaner. We usually show you how to do it. You can get them at any drugstore, so they're very common too. But
you'll get instructed on that.
Get instructed on that if we ever do that. Yeah. And crowns too. A crown's more like your tooth. We recommend brushing and flossing daily, but we know people being people, it just doesn't always happen. But if you got a bridge, the more you should do. So that's it. So we talked about a crown, we talked about a 3-unit bridge, and we talked about a 6-unit bridge.
Right.
And I probably, maybe the biggest one I've done is an 8 or 9 unit bridge. That's where people have things missing. Usually you can do it, sometimes you can do it in 2 pieces and combine them. That takes a little more finesse to get those to fit, but it works. Pretty good stuff. It works. I don't do things unless I think I'm going to get 10 years out of it, but the bigger the bridge, the longevity does decrease.
Mm-hmm.
I've had mine in probably. I've had a bridge. I had a crown up there for 20-some years. Now I've got a bridge in there probably going on 8 or 9 years. So they lasted. They care of them.
Cool.
And then the last thing I'd like to talk about would be implants, dental implants, which when I first started out here 30 years ago when I was in school, if you wanted an implant to work, you had to put 2 of them in there because you're going to lose one of them. So it's kind of a crapshoot which one you're going to lose. Now I haven't seen one fail in a long time. They've come that far. They're impregnated with hypoxyapatite crystals, which mimics bone. So it's artificial bone is actually impregnated on the implants themselves. So that whenever they're placed in there, the bone will actually grow into this artificial bone, and it's harder than a tooth. The interface between the implant and the bone is harder than a regular tooth and bone. You can't get them out. You have to cut them out. I've had to cut a few of those things out too, so that's kind of difficult to do. This what I'm showing is called a mini implant. They're roughly speaking, they're a third or half the size of a conventional implant, and we do these here. These are self-tapping implants that we don't even like to use the term screw it in there, but essentially that's what we're doing. We numb it up, and they are placed into the jawbone, and they're self-tapping. You can have several of these. I got 4 in here on this person. Put it and build your denture over top of it. And this is a true story. I did one of the first ones I did this on was a fella here in town, and he was a local popular man here in town, and I told him that I was going to use him as my guinea pig. I wanted to use him, and I was going to show people the X-ray of him and how it's going, and he was fine with that. Matter of fact, I saw him that night down at Mordecai's after I did this procedure on him. He was eating a steak at Mordecai's. So, and he gave me a thumbs up, and I knew everything was okay because I was nervous about it. I'd never done one of those before. And I said, I hope he's okay. And I looked over there and I saw him down there eating a steak. So they do work. I don't do a ton of these just because I like to think we don't need them because our dentures are doing okay. But these replace essentially dentures. If you got an ill-fitting denture that you hate, a lot of times you can keep the same denture, put the mini implants in, and build the old denture over top of it, and it works like a charm. So it'll do it. You were mentioning something about do we still do dentures? Yes, we do. We do a lot more dentures than we do this, just because these are expensive too. Yeah. Just roughly speaking, to have this done, you're looking at $2,500, $3,000 to have this done. So if you that's in addition to having your denture already made. So if your denture works, why you need that? Well, the answer is you don't if it's working. So
yes,
and it preserves them. There's all kinds of reasons.
Now, is that only for the entire? Like no, that's the whole mouth there.
No,
you can have that also done.
You can have. I just showed you the mini implants before you came. When I was thinking about what to talk about today, I was trying to find a single tooth implant. And I know I've got them back there, but they might be in the process of being going to the lab or something. But yes, you can do single tooth implants, which before 30 years ago when I was doing this, I wouldn't recommend anybody to get those things, but they work now, work very well. You can put a single tooth implant in there. I've seen techniques to where you can load those as soon as you put them in there. By that, you can put a temporary on there, and you can walk around, nobody knows it. There's other techniques. It all depends on where it is and how much force you got to put on it. But they've come a long way. Well, just like everything else. Oh, I was telling you the story about the wooden leg. Why do we have so many choices? Well, in dentistry, we have come a long way, but we still revert back to some of our technology that's been around for 150 years, and that would be their conventional dentures. They've been around forever. The Romans did a lot of dentistry. The Greeks did a lot of dentistry, and whenever they were unearthing some of these archives, they found dentistry. They were actually casting dentistry into people's mouths back 5,000 years ago. So, and we still use some of the same techniques. So that's when I was saying the wooden leg. When I was a boy here in town in Springfield, there was a man that had a wooden leg, but you never see that anymore. I've been to third world countries where you see it, but in dentistry, we're still doing wooden legs. We still offer that because they work and they get people from point A to point B, but we can do it better.
Yeah. So there's lots of various options, and you can get them all done by Isaacs and Isaacs General Dentistry right here on Bobolink Drive in Springfield. And what's the phone number for them to call to make an appointment?
Phone number has not been changed since 1963. It is 859-336-7680. 336-7680.
And give a call to get an appointment here at Isaacs and Isaacs General Dentistry, the Spring Carry White for Channel 6 Central Kentucky Television.